Hello and welcome to 258 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. Week 2 was another crazy week, and it's just the more you dive into things, the more we watch, the more we realize that a lot of these principles that we've been teaching at Smash Accept, these build around your core wide receivers, fill in with running backs, is really just coming to fruition. Snoog, I'm looking at my teams this week. Man, Smash 2 was my only loss. I went 19-1. Smash 2, I ended up losing because Josh Allen had the poor week. Everybody, AJ Brown was out, Puka was out. But what I really start to look at, Snoog, is, you see Pacheco goes down to injury. Christian McCaffrey's out. And we preach all the time to build our dynasty teams around foundational wide receivers. And my teams that have Jefferson, Lamb, now Rashee Rice in that area, Nico Collins, Malik, Nabers, Garrett Wilson. Like, these teams are just dominating because then what we've been preaching the whole time, man, is fill it in with Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, James Conner. And man, it has just been a recipe for success. That's just such an easy blueprint. I wish more people would take advantage of it.
Speaking of Alvin Kamara, Dad, anytime he has a vintage game, I bust out the jersey. Last week and this week. 44 fantasy points, 4 touchdowns. Cheers. I have him in every single league, and then I look in Smash Except 9 and realize Dad had him and whooped my ass, and now I'm 0-3 against Dad in that league.
Can we talk about that? Like, playing head-to-head with you, I was talking to him backstage, but I was like, you know what? I had Jerome Ford in the whole week. I had Jerome Ford higher in my rankings, and then I was like, oh, wait a second. Snoog loves Devontae Adams. I'm going to throw him in the lineup. And it just feels a little bit better just to beat you, Snoog. I know you'll come around because I'm a win now team, and it's like, it's one of those things.
I love how you mentioned, though, the running back thing, because, Dad, I keep seeing these stats that the league is playing a ridiculous amount of too high safeties and formations on defense all throughout the first 2 weeks, like at an absurd rate, like 40-something%. This could be the year, and I actually tweeted this offseason. This will be the year we get 5 to 6 300-plus point scoring running backs, in my opinion. Like, I think Achane Kamara, Bijan, Brees, and Gibbs all have a chance at being like a 300-plus point scorer because they have those crazy spike weeks. They have the receiving upside. They have the touchdown upside. And that's just ridiculous there. And then there's a couple other guys that have like 250-plus point upside. But it's going to be a crazy running back year.
And this is our wide receiver show, but those are the elite guys. But Snoog, you're filling in, and we've preached this too. I have Jordan Mason on 16 teams. I have him everywhere. He's plugged in. He's a top 5 running back. I did just trade him in a rebuild. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's kind of the move. So I traded Jordan Mason, Nick Chubb, and Gardner Minshew for Bryce Young, Pacheco, and Hollywood Brown. Because I was like, I'm trying to shave my points. I'm trying to get that all off the clock. I mean, essentially it's getting Pacheco for Jordan Mason. It's getting Bryce Young for Gardner Minshew. For me, it's a
I've
smash.
Been seeing Bryce going for like thirds, like thirds, late second, mid-second.
He looked like crap, but I'll throw a dart out there. You know what I mean? Like, I had 3 shares. I sold 2 of them, and I balked on selling the last one, and I hate it because it's like we talk about during the market, and I knew the market was going to go up in the offseason, and then I knew it was going to come back down once he had a couple struggle games. But anyways, so we're talking about these running backs that can fill it, right? We talk about having core wide receivers, but you throw in Zach Charbonnet, he puts up 21 fantasy points. You throw in Jordan Mason. Those guys are going to be available. That's why we talk about having all those insurance running backs. But Snoog, I want to talk about the wide receivers. I put out my new top 12. I right now think there are only 11 foundational wide receivers. Last year we were talking about 15. So I want to talk about the foundational wide receivers. I want to talk about, those guys that are ascending. I also want to talk about, since he's over here, Smash More September. It is DJ Moore giveaway time. You guys all you got to do is subscribe to the YouTube page, drop a line in our Snoog and I put it out every single day. # Smash More September. Join the Patreon. No better time. That's a good way to get in there too. No better time than right now. I mean, $5 a month gets you the peace of mind of sit starts. Snoog and I are in there Sunday morning nonstop. I mean, this past Sunday, I think I answered 150 sit start questions. Like, I'm just sitting there just banging them out. And that's the thing. And then I went through and I looked, Snoog, and I was at 88% on those. You know what I mean? And like, when you talk about how wild week 2 was, that's crazy high. And I know yours were as well. So that's one of the biggest peace of minds is like you're in there for $5 a month. That's like 20 cents a day. You can talk shop to people and then have access to us just helping you out with those things.
But I told everyone to start JSN. So
yeah, no, there was
paid off.
So many crazy hits we had this week of like telling the guys the right people to play. I was telling everybody to trade for Chris Godwin, plug him into your lineups, to play anybody that plays Washington right now. But anyways, so there was debate. Right now I have a tier of 2. I don't think there's a third guy that belongs in that tier 1. For me, it's Justin Jefferson and Ceedee Lamb. Jamar Chase has proven that, as far as we've seen, the consistency is not there the same as there is with Justin Jefferson and Ceedee Lamb.
I agree.
Those guys as your foundational wide receivers. Both of them had some questions around them that you and I were saying we were talking about July and August because we weren't sure if Lamb was going to sign and Jefferson was playing with Darnold. Jefferson didn't miss a beat. We were talking about he was the
best wide receiver ever. He's going to be
best wide receiver 1 with Kirk Cousins. He was wide receiver 5 with trash backups. Now Sam Darnold looks like he's rejuvenated here a little bit. There's no debate. Justin Jefferson is the 1, and for me, Ceedee Lamb is the 2. But these 2 guys are 2 above everybody else. I think there's a guy that's going to join them at some point, but these guys here should be untouchable, right? These are the wide receivers you build your team around. And people are like, well, Dad, someone messaged me the other day. I can get a mid-first Brian Thomas Jr. and Chris Godwin for Justin Jefferson. I'm like, just don't do it. Like, no, you're building around Justin Jefferson. We want Brian Thomas to be a foundational wide receiver, but Justin Jefferson and Ceedee Lamb should not be traded, period.
Yeah, and if you give up one of those 2 guys, you better be getting a damn king ransom in return. Because
there's 4 guys I'd trade down to, right? It's Amon-Ra, Marvin, maybe Chase, Garrett, and Malik, and Nico. That's it. So there's 5 guys. If you're not getting one of them,
I'd say AJ Brown, if I'm contending, I'm fine getting it. AJ Brown's still only 27. That's crazy. He's still he's one of those guys that wins you weeks. Like he has that 30, 40 point ceiling. But yeah, I mean, for Jeff, he's pacing to be one of the best wide receivers to ever touch field. He is situation proof. He's QB proof. The scheme is him. The offense is him. Everything is him. O'Connell knows that. He'll do everything he can to scheme up concepts for him to get open. Darnold's playing lights out, and then you got Ceedee Lamb and Dak. They both got paid. They started off a little slow. They do every year. They did last year. They did the year before. It drives me crazy, too, because, I'm sure you remember this. This was when I first really started getting into the space. Ceedee Lamb had year 1 and year 2. He wasn't living up to the hype. He was a 900 to 1,000. He's what T. Higgins is. And then year 3, he started off slow the first 3 games, and everyone's like, oh, he's so overrated. I remember going out there and buying 4 shares of him in my Dynasty leagues at the time for around 3rd, 4th round startup pick value. And then the dude finished wide receiver 5 with 100 receptions, 1,300 yards. Don't overreact to week 1 and 2. When it's week 6, week 5, okay, now it's time to overreact. But I can't even count on my hands how many times good players have started off slow in the first couple of games and then all of a sudden shoot out of a cannon, because the elite talents usually work out. Ceedee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, they'll all be absolutely fine. I promise you that. Unless there's an injury to one of their quarterbacks or to them, they'll be fine.
Yeah, and I'm looking through on Dynasty Data Lab again. I'm seeing Jackson Smith and Jigba in a first for Jefferson. If that's not the 101, you lose really bad. Even if it's the 101, you probably lose. Those are the kind of trades where I'm I see Rashee Rice, Pacheco, and a first for Justin Jefferson. At this point, and that was done today, so it wasn't even that Pacheco was in that right spot. Puka Nacua, a 26 and a 27 first for Jefferson. I'm not doing it. That's not it. I see Jamar Chase and a late 25 first. I'm also not doing that at this point. And I know that sounds crazy from a couple of months ago, but Snoog, I've moved Justin Jefferson and Ceedee Lamb into that 1-2 spot. Both of them, I think, are worth 2.5 to 3 firsts in Superflex. They're worth 3+ in one quarterback. I know a lot of people are like, Dad, you said it's 2.5 first. Not in one quarterback, man. They got to be 3+, maybe even 4 when you're talking about a 1 quarterback league. But I moved Jamar Chase down to the top of tier 2. I think Jamar Chase has just had enough inconsistency where I just don't see him in that same light. Now, this is something that needs to be prefaced. They play the Commanders this week. He is going to be the wide receiver 1 overall this week, no doubt. Like whoever plays the Commanders, since in the last 19 games, they've given up the most touchdowns, the most yards in a per game basis and overall, and it's not even close.
And they're at home.
So they get
they're at home.
So
playing,
I mean,
yeah.
Burrow looked decent against the Chiefs. But then you look, and Jamar Chase had, 3 receptions for 29 yards. But then the tight ends had 8 receptions. Now, I understand people are trying to take him away, but they're trying to take Jefferson away. They're trying to take Lamb away. Chase disappears sometimes, and I don't like it. I love the talent.
Sick of that excuse.
But I am firmly in the area. If you can still get a first on top of Garrett Wilson, Malik Nabers, or Nico Collins for Jamar Chase, I'm going to smash that all day long.
Too.
I'm down. I only have 2 Jamar Chase shares at this point because I have tiered them all down, and I'm okay having him. That's awesome, but I'm also trying to tier down because I want some insulation. I love the talent, but it just doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel the same as starting Jefferson. It doesn't feel the same as starting Ceedee Lamb. And I know we're talking 2 games in, but you got to be disappointed with what you've seen so far with Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I mean, it's been frustrating. I got him in my $200 league. I got him in a couple leagues that I'm very competitive in, and it's like, at what point are you going to talk all this crap and not show the like, come on, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just look like an absolute fool out there talking all this crap about all these teams, all these players, talking bad about your fellow player and teammate, Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm tired of it.
Saying you deserve more money. Show up then. If you want to get paid like the big dogs, perform like the big dogs because you damn well ain't. And I really need to see it because I think you are extremely talented, one of the best wide receivers in football, one of the most versatile weapons you could ask for. You're walking in on a Monday Night Football in front of everybody at home against a secondary that's let up a lot of points. But I can tell you one thing, that these Commanders are going to play this Cincinnati Bengals team hard, and yeah, the Bengals are probably going to win. They should win.
They should roll them.
But
James Daniels is doing enough to win.
If they look like they did against New England, they always play the Chiefs good. So to me, that's just like, I don't care. I need to see more. They always play them good.
Is Joe Burrow a sell after that game? Are you worried about Joe Burrow? Like I keep going back and forth mentally, right? Like I'm like,
nah.
I have Kyler in there with Burrow already. We talked about that was going to happen all offseason. I'm not super worried, but you see him on the sideline doing things with his wrists, and you're like,
yeah,
all right,
he was a sell when you could get
there.
Kyler or Stroud for him. But now I have Kyler and Stroud both well above him, and I had Kyler above him before the season even started. So if you still can get Kyler Murray plus, do it. I think this team is missing T. Higgins more than anything right now.
Yeah.
I think
because
they need him, and this
we thought
proves
Burton
how
was going to
valuable
jump in.
he is.
Yeah, you can tell.
Dude,
you and I are both just
pony.
We're eager to talk. I love this because this tier here, I have 3 guys, and I would not, I have Jamar Chase 3, Amon-Ra 4, and Marv 5. I think that we're really close to seeing Marv jump Amon-Ra because Amon-Ra's a little banged up here. Amon-Ra's just been, you put the stat line between Amon-Ra and Chase next to each other, and then you tell me that Amon-Ra doesn't belong to be the wide receiver 3, or you talk about the pedigree of Marvin Harrison and don't say that he can, if you can get a plus on top of any of these guys, you do it. I think right now, Marvin Harrison Jr., your buy window is over. I did trade one, and I talked to you before I even did it, and smashed except 7. I was like, man, I can't just keep playing without a quarterback. Like I lost Jordan Love. So I traded Marvin Harrison Jr., Jordan Love, and 2 seconds, which will be a late 25 and a late 26 for Devonta Smith and CJ Stroud, because I wanted that foundational quarterback in there, but I'm kind of low-key kicking myself. You know what I mean? Like,
that's a banger move.
It was the right trade.
Nasty. Devonta Smith is nasty. He should have 2 touchdowns last night.
We're going to talk about him with the ascending, but A.J. Brown, that hamstring injury, he is going to come back in a week or 2, but that hamstring injury we know is something that can re-aggravate, and Devonta Smith showed last night, if A.J. Brown misses time, Devonta Smith is a top 10 wide receiver in this league.
Yeah.
It just happens to be the 1B in that team, and he doesn't get enough respect on his name. Making that trade, in my head, I'm like, CJ Stroud is worth so much more than Jordan Love, but then is Devonta Smith production-wise really worth that much less than Marvin Harrison? You know what I mean? And that was kind of where I was at on that.
At least for this year or next year, it's probably going to be like decently close. But if you take fantasy football out of the picture, I always like to talk about this because I'm a big talent guy. If you take fantasy football out of the picture and just look at the talent, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers are better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think Garrett Wilson is better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think those three wideouts are all more talented, more gifted, more complete wide receivers than Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
But it's so much more than that with fantasy football.
Right.
Scheme, and that's system, target,
that's why people get on us. People get on you and I about having Garrett Wilson so high all the time. But the talent on Garrett Wilson is just...
It'll pay off eventually. It's going to pay off this year. It's going to pay off. He's dropping 40 next week.
We talked about our tier 2, and I love these guys. I mean, if I'm building, these are foundational assets. I have no problem tearing down, though, off of Chase, off of Amon-Ra St. Brown into tier 3. And I love tier 3. Tier 3 is where you're going to win your money. Tier 3 in Dynasty is where you're going to build that ascending piece, because if I can go from Jamar Chase down to Garrett Wilson plus, Malik Nabers plus, Nico Collins has now moved all the way up to my wide receiver 8 above A.J. Brown. I know you'll hate it, but you got to at least respect they're in that same tier now. A.J. Brown at 9, and I've dropped Puka down to wide receiver 10 just because, listen, I know there's the injury. He had a phenomenal rookie season, and I'm not saying he's still in this tier for me, but if I'm winning now, I mean, I want these guys. So let's start with Garrett Wilson. I'm watching the game. And I watch Garrett Wilson he's on Sneed, and Sneed is a phenomenal corner, shutdown corner, but he was getting open consistently. It's just that line trying to work things. The game ski was really run oriented. My man Breece Hall looked good. Braylon Allen looked fantastic. Rodgers. But I think week 3 or week 4, we're going to see an absolute boom week. So if you're in redraft or dynasty and you have an opportunity to buy Garrett Wilson, you do it right now, because Garrett Wilson has looked phenomenal. He's looked the part of that wide receiver 1. Aaron Rodgers is starting to get a little bit more comfortable. I saw he was, leading him on some passes where he wasn't even remotely open, but we just got it. He had that nice lob up over the top and a couple plays where they're building chemistry. But by the time this season is over, Garrett Wilson is going to be a top 10 wide receiver in this particular season. And I think he jumps into tier 2 for me. I think he is going to ascend into that area. And if you can and I still think you can do it. I still think you can give up Chase after this week. So Chase is going to ball out against the Commanders. He's going to put up 2 touchdowns, 100+ yards. It's going to just book it. But then you trade Garrett Wilson plus a mid-first. You get Malik Nabers plus a mid-first. Then you're in that area that we keep talking about, insulating and putting yourself in a position, Snoog, to win long-term. People keep saying, Dad, why is your roster so sick? You know what I mean? Well, that's because this is what we do, right? Jamar Chase is at his peak value. He cannot go up anymore. So let's just trade him for Garrett Wilson and Malik Nabers, who we know are going to move up there, or Nico Collins, who just happens to be underrated for no reason. Literally, he's been in yards per route run. He's been top 3 last year, and he's already, top 3 this year. It's the yards after catch, everything is there. So we make those insulated trades. Garrett Wilson time it's going to pop off in the next 2 weeks. Yeah,
I agree. You could already see all the people on Twitter starting to throw him back in the same category as Drake London and Chris Olave.
I puked when someone said that. They said that. They're like, Dad, why do you have Garrett Wilson at 6, but you have Olave at 12, or Olave at 13 and London at 12? I'm like, because he's Garrett freaking Wilson.
They are never and never will be on the same atmosphere of talent. Garrett Wilson is so much better than people are so stuck on priors with Drake London and Chris Olave. Great players. I love them both as prospects. It's not, I hate them. I like Garrett Wilson. It's just, no, look at what Garrett Wilson's done and look at what they've done with elite quarterback or with terrible quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's Garrett Wilson had 7 different quarterbacks throw him the football. And he is setting records for the first 2 years of a start of a career for a rookie or for a young wideout. It's let him and Rodgers build that connection. This is their first 2 games ever together. This is Rodgers' first 2 full games as a Jet. The offensive line's brand new. Things need to mesh for things to work. It's not as simple as they have Rodgers throw the ball to Garrett Wilson 15 times a game and they win. They try to run the ball. They try to establish a rhythm. The run game opens up the pass game. You saw against the 49ers, it was run, run, run. Then it was literally Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson. That's how it's going to be. Just stay patient. It'll come. Don't overreact to things.
And make your offers now. I'm on Dynasty Data Lab again. Make sure you guys check them out. I see Michael Pittman Jr., Ramondre Stevenson in a second. I just threw up in my mouth there.
Anytime I hear Michael Pittman, it's game over.
You're going to love it, because then we got Michael Pittman Jr. and Brian Thomas Jr. for Garrett Wilson. Nope. DJ Moore, James Conner in a second for Garrett Wilson in a third. Like, you guys are going to regret these type of trades.
Who was that smart guy out there that was like saying fade Michael Pittman all offseason because Richardson can't throw the ball to a friggin' toddler standing in front of him?
That's for sure. Now, here's one. I think Garrett Wilson for Puka Nacua. I'm willing to add a second on top of Puka to get to Garrett at this point. Like, I've been trying, and I've been trying to do it in a couple of leagues. Brandon Ayuk and Jaden Reed or Khalil Shakir and Garrett Wilson. I love Ayuk and Reed, but I'm on the Garrett side there.
Yeah, me too. Easily.
Garrett Wilson or Olave, Swift in a second. And this is where, remember, I made that trade, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I gave Bryce Young and Chris Olave for Garrett Wilson and JJ McCarthy a couple of weeks ago. Like, how bad does that one look now? Like, we're into those kind of scenarios. So you want to make those moves where you can try to do a 2 for 2. We'll get to that. People keep messaging me while we're doing this live. And if you guys are on Twitter, if you guys are on YouTube, make sure you guys check us out on live. Hit that smash accept subscribe button because everyone's asking about what should we do with Tua, what should we do with Waddle. We're gonna get there. All right, next one, Malik Nabers. Now, here's the thing. I moved Malik Nabers all the way up to 7. You could argue moving Malik Nabers into that same area above Garrett Wilson. You really could. However,
now 7.
Let's talk about right now. He's third in the NFL in fantasy points scored. Now, 67% target share against the Commanders. Like, Daniel Jones was like, okay, I'm not going to win throwing the ball to Wan'Dale Robinson 14 times. So let's see what we can do here with, Malik Nabers. I do want to curb the enthusiasm a little bit, right? Because that was the Commanders. He dominated against the Commanders. I feel like everybody's going to do that. So your window to buy Malik Nabers is probably shut. If you guys watched our show, we did that 2 months ago, where we were suggesting all these trades where you could get, like I was trading Marvin Harrison for Malik Nabers in an early second, even a late first in some areas. We were talking about tearing up from Puka, tearing up from London, tearing up from Olave. Whole show on that. Snoog, I went back and listened to it. We did 15 trades. None of them are available anymore. Like every single one of them. If you did those when we were talking about it, and that's why Dynasty is so important about timing, Snoop, is like everybody wants to make the trade afterwards. Now everybody wants Malik Nabers. Sorry, game over. You're not getting him. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem. Everybody wants him now, but they didn't want him when there was uncertainty. That's why you and we predict these kind of things. But I mean, right now, if I offered you, if you have Malik Nabers, would you London in a first?
No.
Olave in a first?
Nope.
Rashee Rice in a first?
Nope.
So I might take Rashee, but like, how about
I think Nabers will eventually be a top 5 dynasty wide receiver.
Yep. Oh, he's
at some
like
point.
Garrett and
I think
Malik
him and Marr
real
will
close
be at some point.
I think they'll both be up there in that next tier up. So I mean, like, bottom line, we've talked about Malik Nabers so much on this show. Your buy window is over as far as tiering up, but you can still tier down. I'm still saying Chase or Marv. You can get Malik plus. If you want to go, I'm so confident in Malik Nabers. If you want to go Ceedee Lamb for Malik Nabers a first and then a running back upgrade, like you go from Aaron Jones to James Cook, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, get yourself a couple of upgrades and that picks a mid. I still think that's there, and I think that's a way to win in Dynasty, but your buy window on Malik Nabers is absolutely closed. Just like the next guy. I've moved Nico Collins all the way up to my wide receiver 8, and people were mad that I didn't move him up above Garrett Wilson. But Snoog, I mean, the writing was on the wall that he's tied to CJ Stroud. He was phenomenal last year. We number 2 in yards after the catch, top 3 in yards per route run. Phenomenal season. And then we get Stephon Diggs, right? And you and I were saying that he's going to be the 1A on this team. But I don't think there's a 1B. I think it's a wide receiver 1, and then there's 2 guys that are really solid flexes or back-end wide receiver 2s. Nico Collins, CJ Stroud is just peppering him. You know what I mean? I think Diggs is going to have some big weeks.
Really,
and
I think
Dell's the odd man out in a lot of situations here.
I think Dell is,
But
they're trying to use Dell as like their fun, gadgety playmaker right now, and it's like
and keep him healthy.
He's getting touches, but it's and I think they're slowly easing him back in. But I think Diggs is there to mentor Dell, make Dell a better player for this year. But I think Diggs is a he looks so different. I mean, it's still early on, but like from a leader perspective and what he's done for that offense and that team so far has been big. Like he has really sharpened his leadership skills. But I think Diggs, once he starts getting settled in and once the Texans are forced to throw the ball more, they have a hard schedule. They're going to be in so many shootout games. Diggs is going to be a touchdown machine. I think there's a chance Diggs hits like 9 to 10 touchdowns on the season. I mean, he already had 2 in his first game.
Yeah.
It was a tough game against the Bears. They have an elite secondary. It was just a weird flow, tons of penalties, a lot of things called back. But I think when the game script comes and Nico has a true number 1 corner up his friggin' alley the whole game, I think they're going to be throwing some deep shots downfield to Diggs and getting him involved in the red zone. So that offense is just getting started. There's going to be tons of points going around. So I think Diggs is a great buy low opportunity, just getting a little sidetracked here. But Nico, I mean, 4th highest yards per out run on the season. He has like the 2nd highest PPR points per route run since 2023. Shout out Jacob Gibbs. He's one of the biggest analysts on there data-wise. Just has tons of great data, tons of great tools. So check him out on Twitter. He put that stat out there. So that's just Nico Collins is a PPR scoring machine. He's a target hog. He's number 1 option in a top 3 passing offense. Yards per out run numbers through the roof. Currently the wide receiver 2 overall through 2 weeks. I mean, he's absolutely elite, man. Go buy him everywhere. Because I think some people are still like, is Nico Collins actually this good?
Dude,
like,
the trades are bad. I mean, the trades are bad on here where I'm seeing, I saw, let's see, like a couple of them on here quick. Waddle in a second. Give me Nico Collins all day. Nico in a first for Garrett Wilson is interesting. I think that one's a pretty fun trade to talk about. Mark Andrews and Xavier Legette. Like, no, sorry. That may be in the offseason before we saw, where Mark Andrews was at this point, but that's not even touching that. T. Higgins and Jordan Mason. So I know this trade is not on, but I am using Jordan Mason on teams where, first off, I think Christian McCaffrey does come back by week 6, but I think he's eased into the offense and has a high re-injury risk. So if I'm contending, people keep asking about Jordan Mason. I know Ryan McDowell put out there a tweet, and 84% of people said they'd pay a first for Jordan Mason, but they would not. A pair of seconds, that's fine. If you're talking a late 25, late 26, go do it.
Yeah.
A mid 25 second this year, sure. An early 25 second, probably not. I would want a third back. I think I'm investing in Jordan Mason, but if you have an opportunity where you can take Jordan Mason and T. Higgins and turn that into Nico Collins, you're going to find another Jordan Mason this year. Zach Charbonnet's already putting up points. I think Marshawn Lloyd's going to be a guy with how much usage Josh Jacobs is getting. I think Marshawn Lloyd is going to be very relevant down the stretch because I think that we're going to see an injury there. You know what I mean? Like there will be opportunities to buy another running back, but tearing up from T. Higgins, from Michael Pittman, from, guys in that range, do it. Like use Jordan Mason as that kind of asset.
Michael Pittman's in my wide receiver 30s right now.
I got him at 29. I've dropped him so far. Like and
I
like
think he went from 28 week 1 to 30 something now. 31.
I had him at 21. I've moved him all the way up down to 29, and it's a sinking ship. Someone offered me Pittman for T. Higgins in a second, and I'm like, I'll take, I'll throw in Khalil Shakir this week, and I'll keep T. Higgins because the Pittman ship is over. You and I were both selling there. AJ Brown. So AJ Brown's my 9. He's probably your 8, and he belongs in that area. I mean, when he's on the field, phenomenal. He was so good week 1, gets the hamstring injury, but I think AJ Brown is a screaming buy right now. If you're a contender and you have, like I said, Khalil Shakir, or you have even Raheed Shaheed, you have one of these guys where you can just Calvin Ridley, you can get by. Dude, if you can tear down and you take everyone plays so week to week in Dynasty where they should not. I think you give up Amon-Ra in a second and you can get AJ Brown in a first. Like you can do that with Jamar Chase too. And I'm like, do it. Insulate now because AJ Brown is the truth. AJ Brown, I thought when we saw him week 1, I'm like, this dude could be wide receiver 1 overall this season.
He always could be. That's the thing with him is he always can be. It's just,
and he's usually healthy.
Yeah.
So I'm buying.
I think
I'm buying everywhere.
He said that they were taking it the smart route with him. He started to feel it tighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
it wasn't like a bad. He didn't pull his hamstring bad or anything. It was just a little tightness. So they just are gonna let him get healthy, and that's honestly the way to do it. Ease him back in. That's how you got to do it instead of trying to play them through that, and then they end up like T. Higgins on the friggin' IR every year.
AJ Brown in a late second or Devonta Smith in a mid first?
Smith.
I'm trying to do that with my teams right now, okay? Because I'm trying to think ahead. You and I are really good at that, where I'm just like, you know what? If Brown goes down, Devonta is going to be that guy. But Devonta's a rock solid wide receiver too, no matter what. So it's like those are the kind of moves I like to make. Puka Nacua is an interesting one now because, it looks like he's going to be back in what? He'll be back by week 5. Now Cup goes down. So, I mean, if we – it's crazy how much things change, right? We were like, oh, Puka got hurt. Cup, look at Cup. Dude, 21 targets. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 overall. Cup gets hurt, like always. Now you kind of flip it back.
He's going on the IR, they said.
Yeah. So it's like DeMarcus Robinson and Whittington, and it's ugly. It's sad.
Poor Staffy. Fire up Antonio Brown, baby. Call him up.
Yeah, Antonio Brown with his CTE videos. He's been doing doing music videos now. Like,
he's so funny, dude. He makes Twitter awesome.
I almost feel bad laughing because I feel like he's just had so many concussions, and that's just where we're at. But Puka Nacua, I think, is a low key buy right now, and I mean I've moved him down, but I think he's going to be good value. And if Cup, we're seeing. If Cup gets injured here, he's going to go to IR. Cup's value is just dipping.
I was excited to see Cup really shine.
I was too, and I think Puka's
Injuries
a buy.
Stink. I hate seeing these guys get injured. It's like the worst.
I wish they could all. My next guy I've moved up more than anyone, and I feel great about it. I really do, because you and I were banging the drums. I'm in 20 leagues. I traded for him in 6 of them. And I'm talking pennies on the dollar. I'm talking about giving up, honestly, a couple of them.
Let me try to guess.
You know who it is.
This is going to be.
You know who it is.
Let me try to guess. I don't know who this is going to be. Is it Rashee Rice?
It's Rashee Rice. I traded Deontay Johnson in a second. I traded Hollywood Brown in a second. I traded Christian Kirk in a second. I got a deal where I gave up Jamar Chase and got Rashee Rice in 2 firsts. And honestly,
was this during the legal when you got those?
Oh yeah, we had a whole show about it. It was the time. Now the time.
See, I couldn't get him anywhere, and people were still charging me a first plus. I'm like, all right, well, that's just what I'd pay for him anyways if he wasn't suspended.
I balked at one where the guy was like, he's like, I want a first. I was like, that's fine, and then he wanted like the 206 on top of that, and I was like, oh man, I really want to get Blake Corum. I would do it today, but Rashee Rice is, going to be phenomenal. I'm seeing him play, and I'm like, this is freaking Michael Thomas 2.0 now. Like, he is ascending into this offense. I know he's going to be suspended, but Snoog, right now, I said the tier 4, Wilson, Nabers, Collins, Brown, Puka Nacua. I think they're all worth the 101 already. Like, they're above. Like, that's where this year's class, not having that quarterback, is different than last year. I have Rashee Rice worth the 104, 105, or like, if you told me right now, do I want Ollie Gordon or Rashee Rice, or do I want, I think we're in that area right now. I think it could drop a little bit once we get further on along the season, but I'm paying a mid first for Rashee Rice now. I think Rashee Rice is in that he belongs above Drake London, above Chris Olave, and with the Tua Tagovailoa injury, and I know that's what my man Chug here was asking. He's like, we still trust in Miami with those quarterbacks. I've moved Tyreek out of this tier down into the next tier, and I know mentally it hurts me, right? But I think Skylar Thompson has to be a wait and see. Tyreek Hill is a sell if you can push for proper value. Like, if I can trade Tyreek Hill for Rashee Rice in a second, I would do it right now. Like, I think you can in some leagues, but Rashee Rice is here to stay. The other 2 guys in that tier that I have, and I want to we'll talk about multiple guys here. I mean, that's my number 12 is Drake London. I think he did play really well last night against the Eagles. I think, we've seen enough from him that he belongs above Chris Olave. I mean, Derek Carr is the QB2 and Chris Olave is wide receiver 30-something, 40-something. Yeah. It's bad. But out of these guys, and I want to talk about 12 through 18, okay, I have London, Olave, Tyreek, Devonta, Ayuk, Odunze, DJ Moore, Waddle, Brian Thomas. That's up to 20. Who do you really like there? I mean, like, who's your 12? Is your 12 London? Like, this is where it gets really tricky for people.
Smith. Devontae
Smith. And I like that. I have him at 15
I like
right
him
now.
Over Chris Olave and Drake London, I think.
I know. Definitely. I was making this list, and after last night's game, I'm watching it, and I'm like, dude, but I think you can get Smith plus for London after that game.
Yeah,
I
I
think
freaking hope so. I got London in one league, in my $200 league, and I'm like, is this guy really just going to be a
yeah.
stinker? He
I
looked great last night, though. They tried. You could tell Kirk Cousins said he was going to try to get him more involved this
mhm.
week. He said that in one of the interviews,
What?
and then said, I plan on just feeding him. And he did
No.
try. He definitely tried. He looked his way a lot. So I think against an easier matchup, I mean, he plays Carolina
Yep.
twice,
Yeah.
Bucks twice,
Did
Saints
Cousins
twice.
figure it out in the second half? Like, did he figure out his
He looked a
killers,
lot
right?
better than he did.
He was
looked a lot
not
better.
settled in week one. The first half, he looked bad. Second half, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, London catching one of them. London was there. And I'm with you. Like, I think if you can get Olave plus, my only London share, is I traded him to John, from Smash Accept. I got Drake London and Dontavian Wicks for Tyreek Hill. And that was, for me, I was like in the borderline. I'm going to rebuild. My team's too old. But now I'm trying to trade Drake London plus because I think if I can get Zay Flowers, if I can go London in a second for Flowers in a first, I think Flowers is going to be in that same area. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's just so much money to be had. There's 11 foundational guys, and then it's like London, Olave, Devonta, Ayuk, Adunze, Moore, Thomas, Waddle, Flowers, Metcalf, Pickens, Dell, Worthy, Reed. Who's your guy? Pick your poison. Go get your guy and get that extra value because that's what Smash Accept's all about, right?
I think a good buy low out of that group is George Pickens right now. He should have had
he had 2 touchdowns reversed.
Points.
Yeah.
George Pickens is one. I think Brian Thomas is a great one to take advantage of right now. Too.
I've been buying him.
Value. I think Zay Flowers is a great guy to buy low on too. Mm-hmm. And then I think Rashee and Devontae Smith, those were two of the guys I was absolutely pounding. My whole redraft strategy this offseason was load up on the RBs in round 1 and round 2. Wide out. Like I helped out some guy with a draft. Breece Hall, Achane in the first 2 rounds. He ended up getting Nico Collins. So you got Breece Hall first overall. You got Achane and Nico Collins. I think it was only a 10-team league, but at the 2-3 turn. And then you got Kamara. And then he got Zay Flowers and what's his name? George Pickens. And it's like, just take advantage of that mid-round. And then he got Rashee Rice at that early 6th round.
Do you know how much I love that?
Rashee was going anywhere from like 5 to 7. In the sharp leagues, he was like a fifth rounder. And I took him 501 in one of my leagues I was in redraft. But like we were pounding the drum for Smith and Rice. We look like we're wrong on Amari Cooper. That dude hasn't showed up.
Yeah.
T. Higgins too. He hasn't played. He's been injured. But Flowers,
I love how
Rice,
in tune we
and
are with
Smith.
that.
Our strategy was looking really good this offseason.
I did so many drafts. I was helping people out, and every single one of them. And people were like, even in my
every single one of them, they left with Achane when I was drafting with them.
and in my home league, there was same thing. Is we went with Breece in the first, Achane in the second, Nico in the third, Kamara in the fourth, Rice in the fifth, and Nabers in the sixth, or flip flop. And there's like all of them. Like they were all the same. And people are like, Dad, you're not going to vary from that? I'm like,
how about George Kittle, Dad?
Yo, dude, Kittle's been money. I love it. We're going to do that reaction show here in a minute. But I want to really talk about, like if you're not all the way in, I have a team. I'm in first place, but I made a trade. I got Brian Thomas Jr. in a likely mid first for Devonta Smith in a mid second. And I think, if you're not all the way in, right? Like if you're pushing the chips in, then you take, Devonta Smith and you push up a little bit higher. But he's that perfect guy in the middle. But if you're not all the way in, insulate now. People were mocking me about that. They're like, Dad, you got Brian Thomas Jr. and a first for Devonta in a second. You know what I did with that first? I went and I added it to another first and got Breece Hall. You know what I mean? Like it's just a game within the game. You're making that now. Is there a chance that Brian Thomas Jr. passes or at least gets into the same area as Devonta Smith? I think so. I have him on that ascending list. Even against the Browns, he had 90 plus yards. And he's the clear wide receiver 1 there. Christian Kirk's dead. Like just call it. RIP.
Wait, say that one more time for me.
RIP Christian Kirk. I thought, right, with Evan Ingram out, that this would be a big game for him because the Browns are really the only way to beat the Browns is with your tight end. Like it's keeping it short. And they were able to do it with Brian Thomas Jr. He is a screaming buy. If you can get one of these guys, if you're not all in, like let's say you're middle of the pack and you have Tyreek Hill, give Tyreek Hill for Brian Thomas Jr. in the first. It's never going to happen again. DJ Moore, again, look at that jersey. Look how sexy that is. That jersey, that autograph is beautiful. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and just just send us a screenshot. But DJ Moore is a screaming buy. Like when Caleb Williams figures it out, DJ Moore is going to bounce back to where he is right now. If you were to tell me, he would have been my 12 if like we were talking about Caleb Williams actually doing Caleb Williams type things. Now he's all the way down to 18. I'm buying him.
Yeah.
If I can tear off of Jalen Waddle for DJ Moore, I'm doing it. I'm very worried about about Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle was a guy that, you know, had 9 wide receiver 1 weeks his first season. In the last 3 seasons, he doesn't even have mediocre. That. He's a major sell for me. DK Metcalf's a major buy in this tier because, dude, against Gonzalez, I was like, don't play him. He went off. George Pickens is a major buy in this area. Xavier Worthy, you were, you know, selling after week 1, but you should be buying now because some people are thinking, oh, maybe it was a flash in the pan. Jaden Reed in this area, major buy because when Jordan Love comes back, he's going to bounce back. Jackson Smith and Jigba, you have a small window here where he looked fantastic. Chris Godwin belongs up here as well as being worth a first. So if you can give a late first for Chris Godwin, he is the original slant god before Rashee Rice. He is the current wide receiver 1, and I think he finishes as a top 12 to 15 wide receiver, and you're going to buy him for pennies on the dollar. I got him for 2 seconds the other day, Snoog. I just don't understand. He's 26, 27 years old. Go buy Chris Godwin as well. Sorry, I took over there because I love that area.
Definitely.
Yeah, like talk to me about some of those guys you got because I think – a lot of people in the Patreon are like, Dad, Snoog, we just want to hear you talk. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you structure it and you're like, this guy, but who are you buying out of that group? I mean, that tier 7 for me, 107 to 110, 112, you have so many opportunities for advancement.
I think T. Higgins, believe it or not, is a great buy low opportunity because people are so sick of him. They're done with him. If he comes back healthy, he's a top 15 wide receiver. Just it's that, especially because he has so much on the line for him, the contract, everything. He wants to get paid. He's got to come back healthy. He's got to come back ready to go. Zay Flowers is another one. I think that offense is Zay Flowers. Like whether Lamar's a great passer or not, or if Lamar struggles as a passer and can't throw a ton of touchdowns, Zay Flowers is getting 10 targets a week. He's getting 7 to 8 receptions, a lot of manufactured touches. He's a great buy. I think he's going to have some big weeks. He's going to be a consistent 10 to 15 point floor. And I really like to buy, honestly, at this point, Devontae Smith, Rashee Rice are great buys. I'll buy high on those guys. Brian Thomas Jr. is a great one. Hear me out, Dad. I think I'm at the point. I'm not overreacting. It has nothing to do with Caleb Williams. I think I don't want a single share of DJ Moore or Rome Odunze.
I'm selling Rome.
I am absolutely done with Shane Waldron's offenses. They're terrible. JSN said good luck. Makes sense why JSN struggled. Their offenses it's terrible. The scheme stinks. Nothing's designed. It's screens and strikes to the tight ends. It
was ugly to watch. The offensive line
I have 1 share of Rome. I got a couple shares to DJ Moore, and I can promise you, when this week is about to start on Sunday, I won't have a single share of either of them. They're great players, great talents. Rome's an elite prospect. It's deeper than that, though. It's not go out there and run routes and you'll guaranteed get open and get the ball. It's a rookie QB. He's going to do what the coach says right now, and that's not good.
I have 1 Rome share, and that was in a recent trade where I traded Chris Olave and Kittle to a contender when I'm complete rebuilding for Rome and Kincaid because I think Kincaid's going to pop off. But then Kittle goes crazy. But I'm really trying to get a 25 first plus another wide receiver for Rome Odunze because I'm rebuilding. You know, and I think if I have a lot of people are going to say be patient with your Rome Odunze shares. I'm not quite there. You know what I mean? Because Keenan, when he comes back after a good week, you got to sell him because you're not going to have a lot of windows left. And I think you can give up, you know, a second plus Keenan and get to Chris Godwin. And I would do that all day. You know, the veteran that I'm buying in that area who most people have ranked below is Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley looked great against the Jets. Like I watched every snap of that game. He had 2 touchdowns. He looked really good. So I'm trying to tear off of that. If you're going to buy a veteran late, for me, it's Calvin Ridley. I'm upset with what I've seen with Amari Cooper and Terry McLaurin as veterans. I'm But I'm thrilled with what I've seen from Quentin Johnston. You and I were saying, dude, buy Quentin Johnston cheap. Like I was getting Quentin Johnston and a third for seconds, like late 25 seconds.
He didn't
3
score
touchdowns
in week 1, but he had 3.
Yeah, he did. He's got 3 total touchdowns. He had 1 in week 1 and 2 in week 2. He's got 3 touchdowns already. Yeah, like he had 2 touchdowns this week, and Justin Herbert is not throwing much, but he's hitting him on those deep balls.
Yeah, Herbert's such a good, efficient passer. When he does throw, he's going to make it count. I think they're going to start throwing more and more the more that they can prove that concept with throwing the football. Because they're 2-0 for the first time in Justin's career. And I know it's Carolina and Vegas, but like that's
Vegas beat the Ravens, man.
About.
Like, yeah, exactly. Guys that I'm buying real quick at the end. I'm buying Khalil Shakir. He keeps getting open. I'm buying Raheed Shaheed. This looks legit. Like he's actually ascending into that next area where I feel like you can get him for a real late second. And I think Deontay Johnson is a absolute screaming buy for this week because Andy Dalton's back. I think this was a lot more about Bryce Young than it was this offense. And if Dave Canales after 2 weeks has said, hey, I fixed Geno, I fixed Baker, the hell with this Bryce Young project. I'm going with Andy Dalton. Red Rifle's back. I think Deontay Johnson catches 7+ balls this week. So again, our foundational wide receivers. Tier 1, Jefferson, Lamb. Tier 2, Chase, Brown, Harrison. Tier 3, Wilson, Nabers, Collins, Brown, Puka. Tier 4, Rashee Rice. That's the end of the foundational for me. On the fringe of foundational, Drake, Olave, Ayuk, Devonta, Brian Thomas, Jalen Waddle. Those guys are not Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers. I feel like they're getting to that area because we say a foundational wide receiver is someone that is 25 or younger or an elite level offense. That's why we kind of like we make a little exception for AJ Brown because he's such a stud because he's so close into that area. But guys, this has been a fun show. We're going to continue to bring you both Dynasty and redraft content. We're putting that out on YouTube. We're putting it out on Twitter. We're putting it out in the Patreon. You guys got to get in there. Honestly, $5. Throw yourself in there. If you aren't absolutely happy in the first month, I'll Venmo you $5 back. I haven't done it yet, but I put it out there. Just like you can win a DJ Moore jersey. Like a lot of times people go to one of those dang like raffles where they spend $5 to try to win a jersey. Just go join the Patreon, add a YouTube subscription, and you're boom. There it is. Like you had an opportunity to get an elite jersey.
Yeah, little example of actually what it is it's a Discord, right? You get access to this Discord we built out with rankings, tiers, startup strategies, everything you can think of. We have things like start sit channels. We have everything. Fantasy football chats. We have every channel. There's multiple channels in there. Dad has his own section. I have my own section with all my stuff, with all Dad's stuff. And there's like 400+ people in there talking shop 24/7. So you're getting advice from multiple people. We have guys in there that are acting as moderators just because they love it so much. They're answering questions for us before we can even get to them. Like, you're not just getting, here's rankings for $5 a month. All right. You're getting our DMs. You're getting everything. We're building something here. There's a lot of meat and potatoes behind our Discord and what we're doing and what we're trying to do for the community. So spread the word. Get your friends in there. We're doing a referral as well. If you get someone, we'll give you your first month free. Let's get you in there. We're doing things great in there.
400 guys in there now, and there's only one guy that used the referral bonus. Every single other person, because I always send that in the DMs, like, hey, just so you know. And they're like, the hell with that. This is the best kept secret. So if that's not a screaming proclamation of what you can be doing, I don't know what is. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process. Great show. Banged it back out.